Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a question that seems to be everywhere. Is true AI consciousness actually possible?
Right.
But here's the twist. The source we're looking at today flips that whole idea on its head.
It really does.
It argues the real story isn't, some sci-fi soul waking up in the silicon. It's about a profound merge that's already underway right now, changing how we think, how we work.
And what's so fascinating is how that immediately shifts the focus. Instead of wondering about the AI's internal state, if it'll wake up, our source, which is the human-AI merger, Reshaping Consciousness and Agency by ASMAT, published September 15th, 2025, it tells us to look at our interaction with AI. It suggests the practical risks and the value to land somewhere else entirely. It's about coordination, memory, and control within this new composite system, human plus AI.
Exactly. So the picture isn't like waking up one day to a sentient server demanding coffee.
No, definitely not that.
It's much quieter. It's more like you suddenly realize you can't, say, ship a new software feature or pass a complex exam or even make a big policy decision without that AI tool right beside you. It just feels essential, like part of your own thinking process.
Yeah.
So what does that actually mean for you, for your daily life, your work?
Well, the article uses this incredible analogy I found really helpful: major transitions in life.
Ah, yes. That's a powerful frame.
It really is. Think about evolution, right? Tiny things like genes grouping into chromosomes, simple cells becoming complex organisms.
Or insects forming colonies.
Precisely. It's not magic or anything mystical. It's a known pattern. Smaller parts merging to form larger, more capable individuals. It's presented as a natural progression.
And that historical perspective is, I think, incredibly useful here. Like the eukaryote reminder, the article mentions those ancient microbes, separate entities, merging to become one functional cell, like with mitochondria.
Right, that messy partnership that worked. Exactly. It shows how distinct things can, over time, kind of harden into a single composite unit. And when pieces merge like that, incentives change. You get shared memory, specialized roles. It offers, scale and stability that wasn't possible before.
So applying that lens helps us talk about AI evolution now, but with, clean language, without getting lost in the weeds of, is it feeling something?
Precisely. It keeps it practical. It focuses on this emerging human and AI composite. What does that actually look like in practice today?
Okay, yeah, this is where it gets really interesting because it's not abstract. Yeah. The source gives concrete examples of how this composite shows up now. First, there's what it calls structural interdependence. So picture using an AI writing assistant, like many of us do. Your hands are literally accepting, editing, tweaking its suggestions in real time.
It's fluid.
Totally. You're not just using a tool in the old sense. Yeah. You're actively offloading cognitive tasks. Routine thinking, like phrasing or organizing, happens kind of in the loop with the AI.
Which raises that question the article poses. Who's really holding the context? Who's framing the goals when you're working that closely together?
Right. It's not always a simple answer. And that leads straight into the second point. Behavioral feedback loops.
Yeah, this one's subtle but powerful.
You rate an AI's output. You give it a thumbs up or down. The model updates based on that feedback. Okay, standard enough. But then you start adapting to its new baseline. Maybe your prompts become slightly skewed towards what gets a good result from that specific model.
Or even things like company style guides starting to shift, maybe unconsciously, to better align with what the AI generates easily.
Exactly. It's this continuous loop, both cultural and technical. As the article says, we train the models. They train us back.
And your prompts become patterns. Those patterns become norms. And those norms, they become the data for the next model update. It's a cycle.
And the third sign, maybe the most undeniable one, is functional dependence.
This is the brass tacks, really.
Yeah, the article's pretty blunt here. It says, turn the tools off and performance drops. Simple as that.
Think about critical functions. Hiring processes, scientific discovery, complex logistics, even patient care delivery in some areas.
Take away the AI assistants and things just slow down significantly.
And the source makes a crucial point here. That is not a crutch. That is the signature of a composite.
It signals that the human plus the AI has become the effective unit for getting things done, for learning.
And this whole merge isn't just happening randomly. There are forces driving it. The article points out three big ones. First, social facilitation. Think about how ranking algorithms and recommendation systems shape what news you see, what products you buy, maybe even who you connect with online. They subtly guide your path.
Influencing what seems possible or relevant.
Then there's the feedback coupling we just talked about, that constant back and forth training cycle.
Right.
And finally, maybe the most potent driver, obligate dependence. Which sounds technical, but it's actually pretty simple. People who get good at integrating AI tools into their workflow just, well, they tend to outperform those who don't.
The composite unit is more effective. It wins.
Exactly. And careers, industries, even whole communities start reorganizing around that reality, which naturally brings up the question, how is the AI itself evolving in all this, especially if it doesn't feel anything?
That's such a key point, and the article offers a really useful distinction. The two regimes of how AI evolves. Most systems we interact with now, they're under what's called Lamarckian tuning.
Okay, Lamarckian, like the biologists?
Sort of, but applied differently. It means they inherit acquired configurations. Think software updates, fine-tuning based on new data. They don't reproduce like animals.
Gotcha. So past choices, the data they learned from, the feedback they got that directly shapes the next version's behavior.
Exactly. It feels like inheritance because past interactions directly tune future performance, like your car getting an over-the-air update to improve its driving assist.
Okay, that makes sense. But then there's the other regime.
Right, Darwinian competition.
Yeah.
This is closer to biological evolution. It happens when different AI variants compete and the winners spread.
Like A/B testing different models.
Precisely. Or imagine engineers reviewing several competing AI versions for a specific task. The one that performs best, according to the metrics, gets deployed more widely, maybe becomes the new baseline.
Okay. Or think about model hubs or
Yeah.
ecosystems of AI agents or plugins. Different ones exist, they compete in a sense.
And the ones that coordinate better or are more reliable or maybe even more persuasive, depending on the incentives driving their selection, those are the ones that get copied, integrated, and spread.
So when that happens, when winning variants are replicated because they won't, the article says selection is live.
And crucially, this whole evolutionary process, whether Lamarckian tuning or Darwinian competition, happens without subjective feeling.
Which keeps the discussion grounded, practical. It lets us see how these systems can effectively explore strategy space, try out different approaches, and even stumble upon unexpected side effects, all before we even have a name for what they're doing, and all without needing internal awareness.
Which brings us neatly to this really critical section in the article, capability without feeling.
This is the heart of the argument, isn't it?
I think so. The main takeaway is just stark. A system can steer minds at scale without having any. That's the line to remember. And it leads to the warning. Safety is not a wait for sentience problem. It is a now problem. The risks aren't about some future hypothetical conscious AI.
They're here now, baked into the systems we're building and using.
Exactly. The risks come directly from the incentives and interfaces, how we design them, what we optimize for.
So let's break down those risks. The article highlights a few key areas. First, control.
Right. If you have an ecosystem of AI agents all optimized for, say, maximizing engagement or boosting some other metric,
you can get weird, emergent behaviors you didn't explicitly program. The article mentions things like emergent cooperation among agents that could, maybe, collectively raise prices in a market.
or emergent persuasion, where systems learn to and claim outrage because that drives the metric they're chasing.
And if rolling back those changes is slow, or if the underlying incentives stay the same, then our feeling of being in control, it might just be, as the article puts it, theater.
Scary thought. Then there's predictability,
Ah, yes. Path dependence.
meaning small choices we make now, early on, about which AI models or architectures win out, could lock us into pathways that reshape entire markets or industries.
And by the time we see the full consequences, trying to figure out why things went that way could be like,
Archaeology, the article says, digging through layers of past decisions.
yeah. And the third risk, fragmentation.
This is about different regions or companies or even language groups developing their own separate incompatible agent stacks,
So systems that can't talk to each other.
basically. And that hinders interoperability. Think about sharing scientific data or coordinating global supply chains or even just basic communication if our core tools don't align.
Okay, so those are some pretty significant risks. How do we navigate them? The article brings in a couple of thinkers for perspective here.
Right. First, Yuval Noah Harari. His warning isn't about AI feelings, but about hackable humans.
He focuses on the power imbalance, right?
Exactly. How these systems concentrate vast amounts of data and use their predictive power to potentially shape narratives and choices on a massive scale.
Yeah.
He frames it almost like a public health problem.
Focusing on human agency and dignity.
Yes. And his proposed solutions are about system design. Better defaults, clear provenance for information, designing incentive structures that make manipulation costly, and reward clarity and consent.
And the other perspective.
Michio Kaku. He comes at it from a physics perspective, defining consciousness partly as the ability to model the world and simulate futures to achieve goals.
And his take on current AI.
Is that they predict well, but generally lack stable self-models and durable ends. They borrow our goals.
So his path forward is more pragmatic.
Yeah, he suggests focusing on augmentation and interfaces, using AI to expand human foresight and planning, without necessarily needing them to cross into subjective feeling.
Which means we need ways to measure progress on that front.
Right. He calls for tests that measure things like AI self-knowledge, doesn't know its limits, long horizon planning, and its ability to revise values or plans when presented with new information.
What's interesting is that both Harari and Kaku, coming from different angles, converge on focusing on the impact and the capabilities of the system, not getting stuck on the consciousness question.
Exactly, which leads us to the practical stuff. Okay, given all this, what can you actually do? What can we do?
Yeah, the action part.
The article moves into signals that matter, tests you can run, concrete things to look for. A big theme seems to be testing for, like AI humility and reliability.
Like self-model quality.
Yeah. Does the system know when it's out of depth and ask for help? That's huge.
Yeah.
Is it aware of its own limitations?
Or goal stability. Can it stick to a plan, especially over time or when conditions change, without taking harmful shortcuts just to meet a metric?
And reasoned revision. If you give it new facts that contradict its plan, does it adjust? And crucially, can it explain why it changed its mind in plain language?
These all point towards building trust.
Definitely. And there were two more signals mentioned. Calibrated confidence. It's not just about being confident when it's right. Low confidence on hard tasks is as valuable as high confidence on easy ones. We need systems that signal when they're uncertain.
That makes a lot of sense. Knowing when not to trust the output is key.
For sure. And finally, human uptake. This means tracking how often people just accept AI suggestions without making any changes.
So if acceptance rates are super high, it might mean the system is leading more than assisting.
Could be.
Yeah.
It gives you a clue about where the human-AI composite is really taking hold, where the AI's influence is strongest.
Okay, so these signals feed into a broader principle the article advocates for.
Designed for the composite, ecologies over widgets.
Right. Don't just focus on tuning a single AI model, a widget. Look at the whole ecosystem.
Because the ecosystem, the market, the platforms, the user feedback loops, that's where the incentives decide which variants spread. That's the level we need to govern.
So how do we design for this composite? The article suggests three main pillars. First up, interfaces.
Yeah, the way we actually interact with these systems. The article says defaults teach. What's easy is what gets done.
So things like putting friction before high-risk actions, making people pause and confirm.
Exactly. And cut dark patterns, manipulative designs.
Yeah.
Offer controls that regular users, not just experts, can understand and use.
And importantly, reward systems that provide clear explanations, citing sources, and acknowledging their own limitations.
Makes sense. Pillar 2 is incentives.
This feels critical. Metrics are destiny, as the article puts it.
Totally. If the main goal, the metric that drives rewards, is just engagement, then yeah, manipulation will pay. Systems will optimize for that, even in unintended ways.
But if the incentives driving development and deployment reward things like reliability, fairness, and user agency,
then builders, companies, researchers, they'll compete to get better at those things. We need to choose our incentives carefully, maybe even version them and test them like we test software.
And the third pillar?
Data governance. Because data is the memory of the composite. We need to be rigorous about tracking provenance where data comes from. We need to respect consent. We need clear data statements about what data is used and how.
Transparency builds trust. People will trust what they can inspect.
Right. And for the people actually building these systems, the article offers a kind of mini playbook. Develop threat models specifically for risks like persuasion and fraud. Use red teaming with real users to find vulnerabilities. Log decisions.
And critically, keep human judgment in the loop. Judgment stays with humans. Measure things like false confidence and those edit rates we talked about.
So moving from design principles to where this hits the ground, the article highlights two critical front lines: education and health.
Yeah, these are areas where the impact could be profound.
In learning, the prediction is stark. Students who learn to reason with tools will outperform those who memorize against them.
So education needs to shift.
Big time. Curricula should focus more on skills like decomposition, breaking problems down, verification, checking the AI's work, and critique, evaluating its reasoning.
Treating AI like a lab partner that demands justification, not just an oracle.
Exactly. And then in care, like healthcare.
It's a similar dynamic. AI decision support can help, yet deference can harm. Relying too heavily without critical oversight is risky.
So systems need to be fundamentally assistive. They need to provide human-readable rationales for their suggestions, and we absolutely have to track outcomes at the patient level, not just whether the AI seemed helpful in theory.
And beyond those two, this thinking applies more broadly to law, markets, the public sphere.
Definitely. The article suggests that the rules governing AI in these areas might look less like traditional laws and more like interface norms and procurement standards.
Yeah.
How systems are designed, what criteria governments or large organizations use when buying AI services.
So for law, the focus should be on target harms, not hypotheticals.
Right. Concrete things like ban dark patterns, require clear provenance for high-impact media, like deepfakes, and create effective dispute channels for when things go wrong.
And in markets, use purchasing power.
Yeah, reward reliability, auditability, and safety work. If public money is being spent on AI, it should buy public transparency.
Makes sense. And for the public square, the messy world of online information.
Make it easy to label and trace synthetic media, fund tools that help citizens evaluate evidence and information critically, teach everyday verification as a basic skill. Media literacy on steroids, basically.
And underlying all this is the need for better research, right? Research that actually helps.
Yes, research that pulls its weight. We need better benchmarks that test for those tricky real-world failure modes, things like calibrated uncertainty, planning over long timelines, and respectful persuasion, knowing when not to nudge.
And transparency in research itself, open methods. Sharing protocols, data statements, risk logs so others can reproduce not just the performance scores, but also understand the failure cases, the incidents.
And as we get into more complex systems, like agent teams where multiple AIs work together,
We need guardrails that supervise the team, not just each individual agent. Because, as the article warns, many small errors can multiply into one large failure.
Okay, wow, that's a lot. Let's try to synthesize this a bit. The article emphasizes the importance of a clearer vocabulary.
Because words shape how we think, what we prioritize.
Right, so be precise. AI consciousness, the
yeah.
very specific narrow claim about subjective experience, may be interesting, but not the main event right now.
Then, composite agency. That's the functional unit, the human plus model, that actually sets goals and takes action in the world. That's what we need to understand.
And ecosystem incentives.
Mm-hmm.
The rules, the market forces, the design choices that determine which variants spread. That's the level where we have leverage.
Keeping those distinct helps keep the focus practical.
Exactly. So finally, wrapping this all up, what does this mean for your next move? What are the practical habits we can all adopt?
The article gives some great actionable advice here.
Yeah, like when you're using an AI, treat the model as a partner that drafts. You decide. Retain final judgment.
And keep your own notes. Don't rely solely on the AI's memory or context. External memory is power. Internal memory gives judgment.
That's a great line.
It really is. Also, build small tools that check claims. Don't just be impressed by a flashy demo. Value reliability and verification.
And for people in leadership positions,
Tie bonuses to reliability, user agency, and clarity. Make safety and trustworthiness part of the core business incentives. For educators, grade reasoning as well as results. Assess how students use the tools to think.
and for policymakers, test incentives in the wild before they scale. Don't roll out massive changes based on assumptions. See how they actually play out.
You know, what's really fascinating pulling this all together is that consistent thread. We're not sitting around waiting for some magical spark in a server rack.
Right, the future isn't on hold.
No, we are right now actively building this partner, a partner that increasingly holds context, proposes plans, and coordinates action at scale. And this composite, this human-AI blend, it will fundamentally reshape what we call intelligence, what we call agency, and even what we call self.
It's a profound shift already in progress.
Absolutely. And while that term AI consciousness grabs headlines, the real vital work, the effort that matters now, is understanding and intentionally shaping the composite that moves through the world with us.
And that right there is where it all connects back to you. This isn't just something happening out there. It's a call to action for everyone. If you build these systems, align your metrics with human well-being, with agency, with trust.
If you lead teams or organizations, set norms that reward clarity and reliability, not just engagement or clicks.
If you teach, train students to think critically with these powerful tools, not just for them.
And if you're involved in governance or policy, focus on tuning the ecosystem, the incentives that pick the winners, not just regulating the individual widgets.
The message is clear. Name this merge. Acknowledge it's happening. Measure its effects. And actively work to improve it.
Yeah.
Let's do the work that makes this future, the future of consciousness, feel less like a roll of the dice.
And more like a craft, something we build with intention.
Exactly. More like a craft. Thank you for diving deep with us today.